Well, next is that we have a great guest. We talk about experience right there. Mr. Bob Marshall, Virginia State Delegate, 13th Congressional District. Thank you.
Mr. Lee, thank you very much. I just want to say something. I know General Mitsusawa talked about going to Las Vegas. Some things stay there. Well, he had enough sense about him to keep his shirt. He's back here, so I'm glad he survived that. But if you saw the news yesterday, you know why Hillary wants early voting.
Yeah.
She didn't want this information to come out to discourage anybody. I looked at the Drudge report. There's a tape from 2006, and there's an individual named Eli Chomsky. He taped Mrs. Hillary at an interview with Jewish press representatives in New York when she was up for election. This is what she stated. She said, "I do not think we should have pushed for an election in the Palestinian territories. I think that was a big mistake." Here's the real kicker. "And if we were going to push for an election, then we should have made sure that we did something to determine who was going to win." Now that shocked Mr. Chomsky, that she would try to infiltrate and turn around an election in a foreign territory. If she is so callous about that, what will she and her operatives do here? You have to be on the lookout, and we have to overachieve to make sure we will win. You saw where James O'Keefe taped an individual talking about cheating in elections. This individual had gone to the White House more than 300 times. And who was accused of violence? The Trump people. Who in fact was inciting it? Individuals connected to the Democrat National Committee. This election is critical. Mr. Obama has done things by executive order, and Hillary will follow suit. He has now decided that women should serve in combat positions. I don't think that's prudent. Not the way he's doing it. This isn't a nurse and someone who's in a field of fire. This is a different position. He talks about defending this country. We are now funding, the Pentagon, according to the Associated Press and Los Angeles Times, is funding one group of rebels who are supporting President Hafez Assad in Syria. And the CIA is supporting another group of rebels, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, who bombed the Pentagon. This is a contradiction. This is madness. This is not a sane defense policy. She wants to change your religion if you think that an unborn child has a right to life. Donald Trump is the only presidential nominee that I ever heard, and I can remember this going back to Reagan and before, who's announced that he will appoint judges that are vetted by a reputable organization, a Federalist Society, who respect the Constitution and throw Roe versus Wade back to the states, which should never have left. Hillary Clinton will vet her judges to make sure that there's a very attenuated Second Amendment. She has stated at a public meeting that she supports the, quote, Australian buyback program. You know what that was? That wasn't a buyback program. That was, you will sell your semi-automatic rifles to the Australian government, or handguns, or you'll suffer some serious consequences, criminal consequences. In Australia, it's illegal to own a firearm for the purpose of defending your life. We cannot let that happen here. I have been going out door to door twice this week. Let me give you some responses. One day we went in Sudley Precinct to about 50 houses, and I didn't know what the response that I was going to get. And I carried two flyers, one for Mr. Trump and Pence and the other for Congressman Whitmer. And I walked to the door. Now, the list I chose were people who voted in 2015, which means there were Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Vegetarians, Socialists, you name it. Everybody was there. So I didn't pull any punches. I identified myself as their state delegate. I said, I hope you vote for Mr. Whitman. I worked with him in the General Assembly, and Mr. Trump and Pence. Nobody bit my head off. Nobody said they weren't voting for me. The response, with about 50 houses with me and another friend, 7 for Trump, 5 for Clinton, 12 Pleasant, but were undecided. There was about 50 homes. We didn't do any signs. That's an area where there weren't a lot of people home. Now, we went yesterday to 121 homes. And again, we went to people who voted in 2015, which means they voted for a state delegate, a state senator, or a member of the Board of Supervisors. This was the response. Same pitch. I'm your state delegate. I'd like you to vote for Congressman Whitman, Donald Trump, Governor Pence. Then I waited for the response. We counted 48 people for Whitman, 44 for Trump, and a trail off is not unusual in those kind of elections. I routinely get more votes than the governor. 4 wouldn't vote for the president at all. How many of you think voted for Hillary? Do you have any numbers? 5. I was shocked. There were 19 people who would not commit. So it was the Hillary people who were embarrassed to acknowledge that they were voting for Hillary, not the Trump people. Well, we delivered 13 signs, so I was very pleased about that. We need to make sure that we get out in this election, because working a couple hours a week, my wife is making phone calls on something called, what is it, Trump Call? Trump Talk, okay. Or go door to door. Working 2 to 3 hours a week is much easier on your lifestyle and your family than what you may have to face if Hillary gets in. Why do I say that? If you saw the last debate, and the general did, she was asked a couple of questions about a no-fly zone in Syria. And she is for this no-fly zone. Interestingly, Obama is not, and Mr. Trump has problems with it as well. She danced around this answer. She didn't really give an answer. And she was pressed again, what would a President Hillary Clinton do if the Russian violated a no-fly zone? She didn't answer the question, but she wants one. Now, why is that a problem? The Joint Chiefs of Staff, General, and the Secretary of Defense were before the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate. In the House, they have affairs. In the Senate, they have relations. That's what they call it. So, Foreign Affairs, Foreign Relations. Senator asked the question. Senator from Mississippi said, what do you think of the no-fly zone? Secretary of Defense deferred to the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Was it General Dunbar? Is that his name? No, right, Dunford. And he kind of talked the question, and he answered, if you want a no-fly zone where only American planes fly, that means war with Syria and Russia. You could have heard a pin drop after that. So I'm saying it's much easier for you to do the work now than have to buy a bomb shelter later. This is life and death right here. She is so reckless that she's willing to gamble with your lives for the purpose of an election. And when Obama or Hillary says 18 U.S. agencies or administrative agencies have said the Russians are doing this, no, they haven't. If you look at National View Online, they identified only 2 sub-agencies who said there may be Russian influence. But you notice what's not being said? Mr. Podesta and Hillary and the Secretary of the Communications for the Hillary campaign, they're not saying these emails are false. They're trying to distract you with saying it just comes from these crazy Bolsheviks. Well, folks, please, pray, think, and act. Go out and knock on some doors, make some calls, talk to your friends at church. Everybody here has an email list. You have got to email blast everybody and tell your friends why you are voting for Donald Trump and Mr. Pence. In your words, not my words, not even Mr. Trump's words, but your words, because they mean the most to your friends, what you think. You have to do this to protect America. If you don't do this, you're gambling. You're going to Las Vegas and risking your future, your family, your lives, your liberty. You cannot do this. We are facing attacks that are unprecedented in the United States. We're going to end up like Eastern Europe, where you could not hold a law degree, a medical degree, or a teaching profession unless you pledged loyalty to the Communist Party. You're going to have to pledge loyalty to a group of secular progressives here that have nothing to do with the real Constitution. And remember, if this election is only about one thing, who supports constitutional conservatives with the Supreme Court, and who supports, quote, progressives? Remember, the Supreme Court, according to the Library of Congress, has reversed itself 236 times on points of the Constitution. Folks, I don't know what you think, that's like a weather vane. That's not a group that tells me that I've got a lot of confidence in them. So we need people who are grounded in the law, who are grounded in moral principles, and who are grounded in the tradition of this country, not some idea that they want to push. Remember, liberals do not, leftists, progressives do not need authority for anything they're doing. They don't refer to the Constitution for what they want to do. They don't find a statute. They are their own authority. We cannot allow people like this to get power. I'll pray for them, but I don't want them in power. It's up to you. Please do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. And when Bob's speaking, I look at Bob. One word comes to me, that is value. Okay, I'm a Republican because I believe in that value. Family, working hard, personal responsibility, self-reliance. However, nowadays, unfortunately, I just see the whole country, if Hillary is getting elected, you're going to see the country to keep going that way, left and the left. Everything is political correctness. There's no right or wrong. Okay, so in that, we have a guest, Bill Cook. Reverend, is he here? He probably didn't get here today.